Okay, so I think we are almost the end of our discussion on this topic. So the how to measure the degree of intergenerational mobility of earnings. Actually, we discussed this, and its correlation. But the number, I mean the value of correlation, it's kind of sensitive to what measures we use, okay, and what groups that we are looking at. So that's one thing we talked about. And second one is that actually we talked about only the correlation between parents and children, but it's actually in research often the sibling correlation is also measured. So sibling correlation is basically how correlated that your and your brothers or your sisters, okay, income are correlated. Okay, so in a lot of times they actually use only men because the women quite often are not wage earners. But anyway, so if you think of a brother, okay, and then sibling correlation is interesting because it can actually give us information about the importance of family and community background. Let me explain why that we can think that way. Okay, suppose that, let's say there are two siblings, okay, two brothers of family J. So there are two brothers, so we can actually write down a first one's income as Y1J, let's say, and second, let's say younger brother's income is Y2J, okay? J just means that they belong to the same family. So first family is Y11, Y21. Second family is Y12, Y22. Third family Y13, Y23 in that way, okay? Now, and we can actually write down very simple way how the a person's income is consisted of. Okay, one is the okay. Let me. Oh, okay. So I just wrote it wrong. It should be Y I1 Y I2. Sorry. Y I1 Y I2. So this means I first subscript is family. Second subscript is a sibling. So Y11 is first family, first brother. Y12 is first family, second brother. Y21 is second family, first brother. 22 is second family, second brother. Okay, and then we can write this person's income consisting of like two factors. One is the factor that is shared by the family, AI. So first and second brother have the same AI. Okay, so it can be genetic, it can be like a family education, or it can be a community background because they live in the same community, same home. Okay, so they are exposed to the same family, same community. Okay? So it's a common factors, let's say. Okay, and then we can think of his own factor. Let's say PI1, PI2. Okay, so this is the shared one, and this is like individual ones. Okay, it's a very simple way of thinking about how the income is determined. If we accept that, okay, and then we can think of the covariance of earnings in the same family. Okay, what we assume here is first AI and PIJ, okay, independent. Okay, they have nothing to do with each other. Okay, so everything that is to the family specific goes into AI. PIJ is a purely individual. Okay, so they are not related. Okay, even genetic factors are in the AI. Okay, and then we also assume that way PI1, let's say PI2, independent. Okay, meaning that their individual factors has nothing to do with each other. Okay, can think of this as its his or her own luck, okay, or our own personality, except minus all the shared personalities, their own personality. So it's like a very individual specific, okay, nothing common. Now, then we can think of like a covariance, okay, between yi1 and yi2. So what determines the first brother and second brother's income together is actually, because bi1 and bi2, they are independent, bi1 and ai independent, bi2 ai independent, okay? Anything that is makes moving together is only the a factor, okay? Actually, if you use the equation for covariance, I gave you the formula for covariance last time. Actually, if you use it, it's actually sigma a squared. Okay. So what explains, what determines the covariance of yi1, yi2 is just the variation of a, variance of a, variance of common factor. Okay. And then the variance of earnings in the population. Okay. So what we are saying is the variance of everyone in the whole population, including yi1, yi2, y11, y12, y21, y22. You know, if you have the data of everyone, and then you get the variance, then what happens is actually pretty easy, because it's a variance of, let's say, yi1, and the variance is just a variance of ai plus variance b. Because, and then they are independent, so there is no covariance. So variance of whole population, so we can write it as, let's say, yij, which is everyone, is just sigma a squared plus sigma b squared. Okay. So it basically means what? The variance of the whole population is just the variance of each family's common factor plus variance of individuals' factors. Okay. So what you see, when you actually get the correlation of yij and yik, okay, so basically when you calculate the correlation of, let's say, AB is covariance AB divided by standard deviation of A and standard deviation of B. Okay. Now, if you think of covariance yi1 and yi2, no, what I'm saying is correlation. Then we have covariance of yi1, yi2, which is basically sigma a squared. Okay. So in the numerator, we have sigma a squared. And denominator is actually standard deviation of yi1 and times standard deviation of yi2. Okay. Now, standard deviation of yi1 is basically the square root of variance of yi1. And square root of variance of yi1 is just the square root of this. Okay. So the standard deviation is the square root sigma a squared plus sigma b squared times square root sigma a squared plus sigma b squared. So if you do that, it basically becomes this. Okay? So that's the second equation part. Okay. So in short, what does it mean? It means actually this is a total variation in the household, in the population. This is just the covariance between two siblings. Okay? And then this one, basically what it shows is the variation of shared factors, such as family factor or community factor. And the denominator is that the shared factor plus individual factors. Okay? So you see the ratio, the ratio tells us the importance of shared factors among all the variations. So let's say if it's 1 It means siblings correlation, okay, gives, let's say if it's 1, that means everything is determined by the family factors or community factors. If it's 0, okay, then everything is determined by only the individual factors. Okay? And then if it's half, let's say 0.5, then which means that half of individual correlation income is determined by the family factor and half is the individual factor. So basically, if we get the correlation, let's say we have, let's say, Korean population, let's say we have a correlation of siblings income in the Korean population, then that number gives us how important the family factor is in determining the Korean individual's income. Okay? So now, then what are the numbers actually that they found? Okay, studies about siblings in the US. Actually, lots of studies are done for the US population. Okay, because first they have this data, long-term data. Okay, what they have is basically it's about 40% of the variance of permanent earnings is generated by the family and community background factor, which means actually this correlation turns out to be about 0.4. Okay? So sibling income correlation is about 0.4, which is actually quite high. So 40%. So it seems that 40% explains the common factors. Common factors explain 40%. And parental income or earnings. Okay, then what are the inside the family and background factors? Okay, and they look at various ways. Actually, not only economists, sociologists also look at it. And what happens is the income or earnings itself seems to be a small part. Okay, so there are lots of things that are uncorrelated with parental income or earnings. Okay, so you can think of this way. For example, even if the parents of higher income likely to have parents of a child of higher income, which does not necessarily mean the income itself is important. Okay, so there are things that are correlated with the income, but it's not just purely income. It could be something like, I don't know, could be something like a genetics. I will talk about it. Okay, or it could be some like I don't know, like a school quality. Okay, for example. Because the higher income families generally live in places where the school quality is pretty good, so probably that thing. Okay, so it could be some other things, not just money. Okay, that's what it is. And gene seems to be important because identical twins, okay, biologically identical twins have the exactly same gene. Okay, so because the identical twins, it's just it's a split, right, of the fertilized egg. It's a split into two because when the egg is fertilized, the gene is determined. Okay, so the identical twins have exactly the same gene. If we think that that way in the gene, so what he found out is that identical twins actually have higher earnings correlations than just the general siblings. General siblings, like as I said, about 0.4. So between 0.3 and 0.5. Gene, the identical twins is 0.5 to 0.7. So which means what? Genetic factor is significant. Okay. So gene is important. And neighborhood. Okay. Neighborhoods, the evidence is still mixed. Okay. So there are lots of questions still remain. So we are not sure that which factor is quite important. Actually, now there are interesting studies about this type of things. I talked about the nature and nurture, and then what they found out, so like a genetic factor seems to support like a nature, right, part. So nature is quite important. Also, there are interesting studies about nurturing. So, for example, like when they look at like siblings, that let's say twins that are raised by two different families, okay, sometimes that happens because of, let's say, the twins, each person is adopted by a different family, or only one person is adopted by a different family. So some studies actually they follow up those twins raised by different people, and then they found that actually, the adopted family is also important. So in that case, the nurturing is also important. So there are lots of things we don't know yet. Okay, how about the Korea's international mobility? Recent studies, there are a couple of studies, the correlation in earnings is around 0.3 and 0.4. Okay? This is actually, this correlation is lower than the US number. US is an international correlation seems to be lie above 0.4. It's actually there's an interesting history about international correlation in the US because when they started the measuring the international correlation in the US, actually the number was actually quite small. It was actually below 0.3. So they seemed that they argued that US is quite a mobile society, actually. It's quite a long time ago. When they get the better data and then they calculate it again and again, they found out that actually in the US, international correlation is actually quite high, above 0.4. So actually it's above most of the Western European countries. So now the general consensus is the US is not that mobile society. So in the US, having rich parents is quite important to your life. Actually, probably it's more important than in Korea. Yeah, probably it's hard to believe nowadays, but what happens? It's actually the numbers says that. So European countries are generally more mobile than the US. Okay. The number itself, Korean data, suppose that we are comparable to the Western European countries. But the thing is that obviously that we need more studies because Korea's data is still limited. And there is some evidence that international mobility in Korea has decreased recently, which means that mobility is going down, it seems. Okay? There is no enough evidence to say definitely, but there is some evidence that it's actually going down. Okay? So I think we have to finish our discussion on inequality, okay, at this point. Actually, if we summarize it, okay, so in Korea and in many other countries, actually the income inequality has been increasing, okay. So there are actually lots of interesting researches being done about the causes of rising inequality. It seems like a rising inequality is an undeniable factor. Okay, but there is some evidence that inequality is decreasing in Korea for the past, let's say, 5 years. But overall, we are living in more unequal society than, let's say, 20 years ago. Okay, so obviously that has a huge impact on not only on economic but also the political and social dimensions. So I think we have to pay a lot of attention to income inequality. Also, that we talked about mobility, intergenerational mobility. Intergenerational mobility is quite important, but there is a study. So intergenerational mobility is determined by many factors. Okay, so family background, gene, and other things, income, and other things. So still, but we have lots of things to know, and then it seems like Korea's international mobility is going down also. That is also that we have to think about what to do about it. Okay. So I think we have to finish our overall discussion on, let's say, policies regarding the lower income families, and then more broadly the issue of poverty and income inequality up to this point. Okay. And then we will move on to the next set of topics, which is social insurance. Okay. So for the first half of the semester, we study the policies that regarding the anti-poverty programs. So it's more like social policies, okay? Welfare programs, welfare policies. Okay, the next part, what we are going to talk about is the social insurance programs. Social insurance programs is not the policy for low-income families. Okay, so we will talk about it, in more general terms later. So first, what we are going to do is, since we are going to deal with insurance, okay, we will first learn about the economic theory of insurance, and then we just cover actually not that much, but we need to understand how the insurance works, okay, and then actually that is closely related why we have social insurance system, okay. Social insurance you can just broadly define is insurance run by the government. So, if you think of the insurance is mostly run by private insurance companies, right? So life insurance, bunch of companies sell you life insurance, car insurance, like a fire insurance or whatever. Most of the insurance is run by private companies in the private market. Okay? But in most countries, including Korea, some special insurance is run by the government. We call them social insurance. Okay? For example, like we have national health insurance, okay, that is run by the government. And then you have to pay for the premium and you have to be covered. There is no opting out. You have to be in the insurance. Okay? Also, there is employment insurance. We will talk about it in more detail later. So it's mostly for the employees and working people, okay? And most of countries have, for example, unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance is included in employment insurance in Korea. So most countries have social unemployment insurance system. We will also talk about insurance for industrial accidents, okay? And also we have national pension system. So which is, we just call it broadly, old age insurance. Most countries have this pension system that is everyone should be in the pension system and then they have to pay for the premium while they are young and they collect the benefit when they are old. Okay. So we have those type of insurances, social insurances, and then most countries do have those type of insurances, actually pretty similar. So first we will look at the private insurance market. And then we will move on today to the discussion of why we need a social insurance, why we need a government in running a certain type of insurance. Okay. So that's our game plan today. Now let's start with a theory of insurance. If you have learned, let's say, microeconomics, you should be familiar with some of the topics that we talk about today. First, let's think of expected utility. Okay, what we are thinking? What we are thinking is that when you start learning economics, okay, then after a few weeks of, let's say, principle or introduction to economics, you will meet utility function. Okay, so utility function basically means that, how happy you are when you consume something. Okay, that's utility function. So utility of something is basically the happiness you get. Now, when you think of utility function, and let's say you think of you consume something, okay, we don't assume there is unexpected things in consumption. Okay? So when you eat something, you eat that. When you eat 10 of them, you eat 10 of them. There is no uncertainty. Okay? But life is not that certain, okay, in some cases. Okay? Sometimes people have to determine what is the utility of uncertain thing. Okay? So when we think of this utility of uncertain things, okay, we use the concept of expected utility. So, you can think of this way. For example, think of utility of income. Okay, why? Okay, let's say there are, let me explain why. Okay, now, let's say you go to a shop, and this shop actually tries to sell you a lottery. Okay, what is a lottery? Lottery is like a flipping a coin. You flip a coin, you get head or tail, and then your outcome is determined by whether it's head or it's tail. Okay? So, with the probability P, the income is X. Okay? If you have this lottery, let's say the probability of P, okay? Let's say 50% you get, let's say, nothing, for example. Okay? And let's say 50% of probability, let's say you get 10,000 won. Okay? So that kind of lottery that the shop is trying to sell you. Okay? If you buy this, okay, and then you flip a coin, you get head, you get nothing, but if you get tail, I will give you 10,000 won. Okay? And the price of this is such and such. And then whether you want to buy it or not. Actually, when you see the real life, lots of people actually buy lottery, right? We have this, thing, right? Lottery, like they pick it like every day, every week. I don't know. I'm pretty bad at lottery, so I almost never buy them. So I don't pay attention to it. Oh. I'm not saying that I didn't try. Actually, I tried a few times. Okay, it didn't work out for me. So, at some point, I just decided that I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, but anyway, so that's pretty common. So actually, it's a pretty common situation. So we need a theory to explain why, for example, some people buy this, why others don't buy this. But not only the lottery, we will talk about in more detail, in more general term about this lottery thing. So that's the situation, okay? Now, we need a theory to get the utility of this lottery. The theory we use is the expected utility function theory, okay? So this is also called Neumann-Morgenstern utility function because they are the first people who suggested this theory. Okay, and this is a standard theory of the uncertainty in economics. It's a pretty simple idea. The idea is this: the lottery, the expected utility of the lottery that I talked about is the probability of utility X. So P is the probability of getting the outcome income X. Okay, and then 1 minus P is the probability of getting the income Y. So expected utility is just the P times UX plus 1 minus P times UY. Okay. So if it's a 50%, if this is a 0.5 times utility of getting nothing plus 0.5 times utility of getting 10,000 won. Okay, so this is how we define expected utility. And then once we define it, then how we think about it? Actually, we just think of this as just like another utility function of G, just a special type of utility function. Then we can move on to all the other theories. Okay. Okay, now let me explain about this. What do we think of this way? Okay, we have a lottery. Let's say I just use the same example. 0.5, probability of 0.5, you get 0, 1. Okay, and 0.5, you get 10,000 won. Okay. Then actually you get the expected value, expected income. Okay. If you actually participate in this lottery, What's your expected income? Expected income is 0.5 times 0 plus 0.5 times 10,000. So that is 5,001. Okay, this is just means 0.5 times 0 plus 0.5 times 10,000. Or in more general, we just write it in this way: px plus 1 minus py. Okay. So this is just the expected value of the lottery. Which means, for example, like if you participate in lottery many times, okay, and then you are expected to end up with 5,001 in your pocket. Okay. And then what's interesting about this thing is that, let's say we can ask the question: you won this lottery, or you won just 5,001? Okay, so you want to participate in a lottery, you try your luck, or you will just get 5,001. Okay? So if you look at it, 5,001 means that you get 5,001 no matter what happens. Just sure thing. But this lottery is actually, you have a chance of getting nothing, but you have a chance of getting the double. Okay? So what do you want? Okay? What do you want? You don't know? You don't know is not the answer. Okay? There are only 3 answers possible in economics when you think of consumer. Don't know is not the one. Okay? What are the three answers that we economists accept? I prefer A to B, or I prefer B to A, or I am indifferent. Okay? I don't know is not the one. Okay, so what's your answer? You want this or that?
5,000.
So you want a sure thing. How about you? Really? Everyone? Okay. So raise your hand if you want 5,001, not the lottery. So nobody wants the chance of double the income. I want this lottery. Oh, there are quite a few. Okay. Okay, I don't care, which means that I'm indifferent. Okay, there's only one. You see, only 3 things. Okay. Now, and we just saw the 3 outcomes, and then using the 3 outcomes, actually we can define the individual's attitude toward risk. Okay. One is just that expected utility of G is smaller than utility of the sure thing, which means what? I want the sure thing, not the lottery. Then we call that individual is risk averse. Okay? Which just means that try to avoid risk. Okay? Averse means trying to avoid. Okay? Don't like a risk. And then I'm indifferent. Okay? Lottery or the sure thing, I don't care, they're the same, then risk neutral. The last one, actually we had quite a few that I won lottery, not the sure thing, then this individual is risk loving. Okay? So you probably have heard these 3 terms already: averse, risk neutral, risk loving. The largest proportion in our class was risk averse. Okay? It's not surprising that usually people are averse to risk. Okay? Now, okay, so think of the risk averse person. Okay, let me explain this way. Okay, now we have utility function, and this is the income. So this is just the utility of income. Okay? Now think of utility function which is concave. Okay. Which means what? When the income level is low, the income goes up, then utility goes up quite quickly. But when you have enough income, then even if you have more income, the increase of utility becomes smaller. So we can say the diminishing marginal utility, right? So this is the typical diagram of diminishing marginal utility, which is we accept as like a standard form of utility function, okay? Diminishing marginal utility. Okay? So you have more income, your utility goes up, but at a diminishing rate. When you have this concave utility function with a diminishing marginal utility, and then you think of x and y, we just talked about the two outcomes of the lottery. And with x, we have ux here, because we just look at the utility function. And y, we have uy here. Okay? And then we talked about the lottery, and then let's say probability p and probability 1 minus p. Then you get the expected value of x and y with the lottery. So that's px plus 1 minus py. In this case, p is smaller than 0.5 anyway. And then what? We have utility of px plus 1 minus py. Okay? So this is the part. Now, what we want to look at is expected utility of the lottery. Actually, expected utility of the lottery is just the ux, p times ux plus 1 minus p times uy. How do you calculate it? Actually, it's pretty simple. Because this is just using the section of the line, we can just write it, draw this way, and then you section it using this, and then you get pux plus 1 minus puy. So what does it tell us? It tells us that this one, utility of sure thing, is greater than the expected utility of the lottery. So this is a typical risk-averse individual. Okay? So risk-averse individual, when you have a diagram, utility function is diminishing marginal utility. So this is standard individual utility function, which means that in economics, quite often we actually assume individuals are risk-averse. Okay? When you have risk-neutral, okay, how the utility function would look like? If it's risk-neutral, it should be straight line. Okay? If it's risk-loving, it should be convex. Okay? So it's going to look like something like this. Okay? And if you have this one, this is risk-loving. Okay. So what we are saying here is that we assume that individuals are risk-averse. Okay. At least we assume most people are risk-averse, which is probably not that different from the truth. Some people may be risk-loving. We do not say that nobody is risk-loving. We just say that most people are risk-averse. Okay? When you think of insurance, individuals must be risk-averse, if you think about it. If everyone is risk-loving, why would you buy an insurance? Okay? So when we have insurance, it basically means that people are risk-averse. Okay, but there is obviously a different degree of risk-averseness. Some people are very risk-averse, some people are less risk-averse. Okay? Actually, you can use the diagram. For example, if it's very convex, then it's more risk-averse. If it's close to, let's say, straight line, it's less risk-averse. Okay? So you can just, using diagram to see. So what we are thinking is that people are risk-averse, but there is a different degree of risk aversion. Okay? And if you study say microeconomics, you have like a relative risk aversion or whatever. There is also all sorts of different theories about risk aversion. Okay? So this is what we just talked about. Now, think of insurance. Now, let's introduce insurance. Okay? So this is like a lottery. Insurance is like a lottery. Okay? And how it works is this way. Okay. There is a probability of something bad happens. Probability of accident. Let's say P. Okay. It could be, for example, probability of getting sick. Or it could be probability of your house being on fire. Okay. Probability of car accident. Whatever. Okay. And then let's say it happens with the probability of P. Okay. And if the bad thing happens, you will lose money. Okay? You lose money of L dollars. When you are sick, you will lose money because you have to pay for the medical cost plus you cannot work. So your income goes down. So you can be translated into monetary loss. Obviously, when you have car accident, okay, it costs money to repair it, and also if you are injured or somebody is injured, then you have to pay for all those things. Okay, then house being on fire, obviously. So lots of things. So we just loss of L happens when the accident happens. Okay, and then we assume the individual initially, before anything happens, he or she has Y dollars. Okay? And we assume individual's utility is a function of wealth, meaning that how much money he or she has gives the utility. Let's say, it's just consumption, but spends everything on consumption. So where income and consumption basically same in this case. Now, so think of insurance company, let's say, and okay, let me write down the situation here. So probability of accident is P, initial wealth is Y dollars, when loss at accident is L dollars. Okay? You are facing this situation. Now, let's say insurance company, and the insurance company tells you that when something bad happens, okay, I can give you payout. Okay. And per payout, however, you have to pay the premium. Insurance premium is the money that you have to pay to be insured. We call it the premium. Okay. So insurance premium per payout of $1 is pi dollars. So if you pay me pi dollars, okay, I'll give you $1 payout. Okay. If you give me 2 times pi dollars, I will give you $2 payout if something bad happens. Okay. So per payout of $1, the insurance premium is pi dollars. And you can choose how much money you want to pay back, that you want to get from the insurance company when something bad happens. So you can choose Z dollar. Okay? So Z dollar is, your insurance policy. Okay? I want, let's say $100, something bad happens. Okay, so premium is pi per dollar. Okay, and payout you choose is $Z. Okay. It should be no greater than L dollars. Okay? The insurance does not make you richer than accident before accident happens. Okay? What it does, the maximum is just to pay out the full loss, not more than that. Okay? If it's greater than L, then that's not insurance. It's a, what is it? It's a speculation. Okay. So insurance assesses, what usually happens in insurance policy is just like that. When you have a car accident, okay, then your car is destroyed. The maximum amount of money that you can get is the value of the car at the time of the accident. Okay. You cannot get more than the value, I mean, the market value. They have this old, like your car model is this, and your car is, let's say, 5 years old. Then the market value of this car is this. That's the maximum you can get. So what usually happens if the repair cost is greater than that amount of money, insurance company will give you the value of the car and then just get rid of the car because it's cheaper for them to do that. Right? So that's what usually happens in car accident. Okay? When you have, let's say, other types of insurance, basically the same thing. When you have medical insurance, they will pay you at the maximum of your medical cost plus some income loss. Okay, they will not give you, whole sum of money to make you rich. Okay, so that's the. Okay, now what is the choice of insurance buyer? Okay, if you buy an insurance, then your premium gonna be pi times G, right? Because if you choose, let's say, $G of the payout, then the total premium is pi Z. If nothing happens, you pay pi Z, right? Still, okay? You get nothing, but you still have to pay pi Z. So that we call it Y1. So Y minus pi Z. So nothing happens. If accidents happens, okay, we call it Y2. It's a Y minus pi Z plus, okay, plus you get the payout Z, but you have a loss of L, right? So the whole thing, when you add them up, is just Y minus L plus 1 minus pi Z. Okay? Get it? So the individual choice is picking Z. That's the individual choice. Okay? So if you choose 0, that means that you choose to have no insurance. Okay? If you pick 0, then you don't pay any premium. But when you have an accident, you lose L, whole thing. Okay? If you buy, let's say, maximum premium, maximum amount, which is G equals L, okay, then what you get? When you have no accident, Y minus pi L. When you have an accident, actually Z equals L, then what you get is this Y minus pi L again. Okay? If Z is equals L, 1 minus pi L again. Okay? So in that case, with or without accident, your wealth will be the same. Okay? What you lose is just the pi L. Okay? Okay? We call it the full insurance. So full insurance means Z equals L, and there is no difference in your income with or without the accident. Right? And no insurance means that you just pay for the loss out of your own pocket, whole thing. Obviously, you can choose in between. Okay? 0%, 100%, and in between. So what the insurance buyer tries to maximize its expected utility. So in the probability of P, the person gets accident, so P times U Y2 plus 1 minus probability 1 minus P, you get Y1. So U Y1. Okay? So that's how you try to maximize. So this is what I said. The individual will choose the amount of insurance payout Z to maximize the expected utility EU. Now think of the insurer's expected profit of insuring the individual against the loss. Okay, the revenue is pi times Z. Okay, what is the expected payout P times Z, probability of accident, and in that case, you pay out Z. So P times G, okay? So this is revenue, this is expected cost. So your expected profit is pi minus P times Z, okay? So it means what? If, let's say there is an accident that is a probability that happens at the probability of 5%, then let's say you collect the premium is 6% of the payout, okay? Then you will actually you will make a profit, okay? Because you get the payout of 6% of loss, but the probability of that happening is 5%. Obviously, it does not mean that the insurance company will make that profit out of only one client. Okay? They have to have a large number of customers to actually realize that expected profit. Okay? So what's important for the insurance company is to have enough number of customers. Okay? If you have one or two, that obviously doesn't make any sense. You have to have a large number, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. And then you just even out your income and loss, then your profit will be very close, in fact, to pi minus P times G by the law of large numbers. But there are conditions that how it happens. We will talk about it later. Okay, now think of the individual's choice. Okay. Basically, you just think of this diagram, okay? The horizontal axis gives the wealth with no loss, okay? So without any accident, that we call it Y1. Okay? And this is wealth in the event of accident, Y2. And if we draw a 45-degree line, we just said that's what? That's full insurance case. Okay? I talked about it. So full insurance means that with or without accident, your income will be the same. So Y1 and Y2 equals same. They are equal to each other. So that's 45-degree line. Anything that you pick on the 45-degree line, you are picking full insurance. Okay, then how about the zero insurance? The zero insurance is that in the case of no loss, you get Y. In the case of loss, you have Y minus L. So this is point N is the choice of no insurance. Okay. And full insurance case, as I said, in the case of no loss, you have Y minus pi L. And in the case of loss, you also have Y minus pi L. Okay? So this is the one. So F is a full insurance. Okay? So the individual choice is actually in between these 2 points, F and N. Okay? So if you pick point F, you are picking full insurance. If you are picking N, you're picking no insurance. And then you can choose in between. Okay? The percentage of insurance. And this is the budget constraint. Saying that individual will choose a point on NF, line NF. And this one has a slope of, actually you can easily calculate the slope, which is actually equal to minus 1 minus pi divided by pi. Okay? And what you can see here is obviously that if pi is large, F point will be lower, so the slope gonna be flatter. Okay? If pi is low, then it's going to be steeper. Okay? So if the insurance premium is high, then it's going to be flatter. Okay? And then if the insurance premium is low, it's going to be steeper. And then think of individual's choice. Now, what you think of is that you have an indifference curve on NF. And at the optimal choice, what you can see here is that the slope of NF should be equal to the slope of the expected utility. Okay? So that is the background we're going to use. So what do you think? We have to think of a slope of expected utility. MRS of EU, marginal rate of substitution of that expected utility. And which basically when you see this diagram, it should be equal to the marginal utility of y1 divided by marginal utility of y2. Okay? This is just a definition of MRS. Okay, then what is the marginal utility of y1? Marginal utility of y1 expected utility is right? So expected utility is like this. Marginal utility of y1 is that if y2 doesn't change, if only y1 changes, then by how much this expected utility will change. It's simple. Because y2 part doesn't matter. If y1 changes, then you have marginal utility of y1. Okay? Times now 1 minus p. So that is the denominator. 1 minus p times marginal utility of y1. And what is the numerator? No. The numerator that I talked about, denominator, is expected utility, marginal utility of y2. Okay, so this part doesn't change, only y2 changes. So p times marginal utility of y2. So that is the p times marginal utility of y2. Okay, get that? So MRS is just 1 minus p MRS is okay. So what it's trying to do is that this is the optimal condition. The ratio of these two should be equal to 1 minus pi times pi. 1 minus pi divided by pi. Okay. Now let's think of pi. Okay, insurance premium. So demand for insurance is determined where MRS of EU equals 1 minus pi times divided by pi. Now what we are assuming here is, let's say insurance market is perfectly competitive. If it's perfectly competitive, the insurance company should make zero profit, because if there is a profit, there will be more insurance companies coming in and they will offer lower premium, and up to the point where that they cannot, nobody can make profit. If nobody can make profit, which means pi should be equal to p. Okay? So insurance premium should be equal to the probability of accident, because the expected profit is p minus pi. No, pi minus p times g, right? So if they charge, let's say 6% to an event that has probability of 5%, then there will be a company saying that we will charge you 5.5%, but still can make 0.5% profit. Now there is another company that's saying that we will charge you 5.2%, whatever. And then you go on and on and on. Then at the end, exactly, everyone will charge you 5%, because if there is small difference, by the theory of competitive market, there will be an insurance company that will undercut the premium. So that means if it's perfectly competitive insurance market, pi should be equal to p. And we call this type of insurance actuarially fair. Actuarially fair just means that what you pay for is the same as the probability of the accident. Actuarially unfair insurance is you are paying more than the probability of accident. Then we say that's actuarially unfair and insurance. So when we say actuarially fair is that just pi equals p. Okay, pi equals p. So If that's the case, we have actually should be equal to this, right? Which means what? This basically means marginal utility of y1 should be equal to marginal utility of y2. Okay? Right? If it happens, this should be equal. Which means what? y1 should be equal to y2. That means in the perfectly competitive insurance market, the premium should be actuarially fair, which means pi equals p. In the market, if you're a risk-averse agent, you will choose to have full insurance. Okay? That's the standard theory. Get that? Okay. That's how you get point F. Okay? You will get the full insurance. Okay. So this is a, it's a simple risk-averse individual will get the maximum insurance and will not bear any risk. Okay? All this risk is transferred to the insurance company. So insurance company will, bear the burden of the uncertainty. Okay? And so the individual is actually quite happy because there is no uncertainty. Okay? Individual risk-averse person hates uncertainty, so just getting rid of uncertainty. Okay? So the person is pretty happy. So this is the situation where we have the perfectly competitive insurance market. But in reality, actually what usually happens is there are costs associated with running an insurance company, right? So the cost of insurance company is not just the paying out. You should have like an office, for example. You should have all those different things. Okay. So exactly, you cannot make actually you will make a loss if your premium is exactly equal to the probability of accident. You will the insurance company will actually charge more than the probability of probability of accident. We call it actually the loading. We call it the loading. The difference between a fair insurance and the real insurance is called the loading. So there is a loading. So if there is a loading, then individual will actually choose to be less than fully insured. Okay? So what usually happens is something like this. Okay? If there is a loading, the insurance premium is higher than P. So as I said, this line is going to be flatter. So when this line is flatter, then your expected utility looks like this, and then you go down, and then you choose this one. So obviously, it's not full insurance. It's less than full insurance. So in most cases, okay, it's optimal to choose less than full insurance. But in our discussion, actually, later, we will assume there is no loading, okay, to be actually, to be more simple. I think we should stop today here, and then we will continue tomorrow.